The morning sun had just started climbing above the open plains of Wyoming, spilling golden light over a small roadside diner that sat off a quiet stretch of Route 287. The parking lot was lined with heavy chrome motorcycles, their engines ticking softly after a long night's ride. Inside, the smell of bacon, coffee, and engine grease filled the air. Laughter and the low hum of conversation echoed through the diner, blending with the sound of boots on tile and country music playing faintly from a jukebox. At one corner table sat a group of Hell's Angels, men in leather vests, tattoos curling up their arms, their presence commanding attention. People often avoided them, assuming trouble followed wherever they went. But inside that tough exterior were stories of heartbreak, loyalty, and survival, stories no one ever asked to hear. Then, everything changed. The air shifted with the sharp, desperate cry of a child. "Help, please." Every head turned toward the diner's glass doors. A little girl, no older than 8, stumbled across the gravel parking lot. Her red dress was torn at the hem, and her muddy boots slipped as she ran. Strands of light brown hair clung to her tear-streaked face. Her voice cracked as she screamed, "They're hurting my mama. Please, somebody help her." The sound silenced everything. Even the jukebox went quiet. For a moment, nobody moved. A couple of truckers near the gas pumps froze mid-bite. The waitress dropped a plate that shattered against the counter. Then one man, just one, pushed his chair back and stood. Mason Cole. He was in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, with dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail and a weathered face that had seen more storms than sunshine. His leather jacket bore the red and white Hell's Angels patch, but his eyes, those gray eyes, carried something rare. Compassion. He crouched down in front of the girl, steadying her trembling hands. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently, his voice rough but kind. "What's your name?" "Hannah," she stammered. "All right, Hannah," Mason said softly. "Where's your mama?" She turned, pointing down the highway toward a small row of rundown trailers, half hidden behind a line of pine trees. "They're beating her," she cried. "Please hurry." That was all Mason needed to hear. He rose to his full height, his expression hardening. "Tank, Ryder, let's roll." Two of his brothers, both burly men with beards and tattoos, stood without hesitation. The three of them threw on their helmets, swung their legs over their Harleys, and the engines roared to life like thunder. The smell of fuel and dust filled the air as the bikes peeled out of the lot, kicking up gravel. The diner fell silent again, everyone staring after them. Hannah stood at the window, wrapped in a biker's jacket that was far too big for her, her small hands gripping the edge of the counter. Her eyes stayed locked on the red taillights fading into the distance. For 5 long minutes, nothing. Then, faintly, the echo of shouting drifted back on the wind. The scene at the trailer park was chaos. Mason's Harley skidded to a stop outside a dented metal trailer. Through a cracked window, he saw a man, drunk, furious, towering over a woman cornered against the wall. She was bleeding from the lip, her arm raised weakly to protect herself. Mason didn't think. He moved. He slammed open the door, boots pounding the wooden floor. The man spun, swinging a half-empty beer bottle. Mason caught his wrist midair, twisted it hard until the glass shattered on the floor, then shoved him back against the wall. The other 2 bikers pinned him down in seconds. "You picked the wrong day, pal," Tank muttered through clenched teeth. Mason turned to the woman. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, voice steady, but filled with restrained fury. She nodded weakly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Please, my daughter." "She's safe," Mason said. "She's at the diner." The woman's knees gave out, but Mason caught her before she fell. Outside, the distant wail of police sirens began to grow louder. Someone must have called it in. When the cops arrived, Mason and his crew didn't move. They stepped outside calmly, hands raised. The drunk man was still cursing from the ground, blood on his knuckles, but Mason's expression didn't change. Hannah came running as soon as the police cars pulled up. "Mama," she screamed, breaking free from one of the diner patrons and sprinting toward her mother. Carla, her mother, fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around her little girl, sobbing uncontrollably. The officers took the man away in handcuffs. He turned out to be Carla's ex-boyfriend, recently released from jail, who had hunted her down that morning. When everything settled, Mason crouched down again beside Hannah. "You did good, kid," he said softly. "You were brave." Hannah smiled for the first time that day, clutching the edge of his vest. "You came," she whispered. "Always," Mason said. "We don't ignore cries like that." By the time they rode back to the diner, the sun was high, the light glinting off their chrome bikes. Carla walked beside them slowly, wrapped in a blanket. Hannah rode with Mason, the oversized helmet slipping down over her eyes as she giggled faintly for the first time since morning. When they arrived, everyone in the diner stepped outside. The truckers, the waitress, even the sheriff. The crowd went still when they saw the woman and child safe. The diner owner brought out hot coffee and blankets, offering them quietly. One by one, the bikers took off their leather jackets and draped them around Carla and Hannah. The gesture was silent, but powerful. Even the sheriff just nodded, saying nothing. Carla's voice trembled as she said, "I didn't think anyone would come." Mason looked at her, and then at Hannah. "She made sure we did." The little girl smiled through her tears. Word spread fast through the small town. By lunchtime, half the county had heard about the Hells Angels who stopped for breakfast and ended up saving a life. People who once crossed the street to avoid them now stopped to shake their hands. Over the next few weeks, the community rallied around Carla and Hannah. Folks donated furniture, groceries, even a small apartment in town. Every Sunday morning, a few Harleys could be seen parked outside her building. Mason and his crew, checking in, bringing supplies, or just sitting at the diner across the street, laughing with Hannah over pancakes. Months later, when spring returned, Hannah showed up at the diner holding a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing in bright crayon, 5 motorcycles in a row, a little girl in red, and a man kneeling beside her. "This is us," she said proudly, handing it to Mason. He looked at it for a long moment before tucking it carefully inside his leather vest. "That's going with me wherever I ride," he said quietly. So if you ever find yourself passing through a dusty stretch of highway and hear the roar of motorcycles in the distance, don't be too quick to judge. Some of the toughest hearts carry the softest souls. And if this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because kindness doesn't always wear a suit and tie. Sometimes it wears a leather jacket.